At our computer club, we talked about it being a revolution. Computers were going to belong to everyone, and give us power, and free us from the people who own computers and all that stuff. In the end, I hope there's a little note somewhere that says I designed a good computer. Some great people are leaders and others are more lucky, in the right place at the right time. I'd put myself in the latter category. But I'd never call myself a normal designer of anything. When the internet first came, I thought it was just the beacon of freedom. People could communicate with anyone, anywhere, and nobody could stop it. If you love what you do and are willing to do what it takes, it's within your reach. The easier it is to do something, the harder it is to change the way you do it. I think that the anti-Microsoft sentiment is simply due to their having been so successful selling a lot of crap. You need the kind of objectivity that makes you forget everything you've heard, clear the table, and do a factual study like a scientist would. I just believe in whatever you're going to do, even if it's work, have a little bit of fun attitude about it. You can be happy. I do not like to talk about the future. I don't like to be one of those people. It's so easy to have a very vague idea and say, oh, computers will be 3D-ish, and then 10 years later I'll say I predicted it 10 years ahead. I don't think that's honest, and I don't think that's valid and worth anything. All through time in Apple products, even from our very first ones, that's how Steve Jobs, looked at the world, that you don't really want a piece of technology, a certain type of chip. What you want is a solution to a problem in life, some cause, some issue that you want in your life that'll help you. And it's how do you make that almost one step, say it and it happens. Most inventors and engineers I've met are like me. They're shy and they live in their heads. The very best of them are artists. And artists work best alone. When you're designing and inventing the way I did, every minute of your life is put, every neuron in your brain, into trying to think about the little code and how you can maybe have one less line of code and a little bit more straightforward from the beginning to the answer. And you don't have time to think about companies and products and how would I build this. So Steve Jobs and I were a very necessary pair. I hope you're as lucky as I am. The world needs inventors, great ones. You can be one. If you love what you do and are willing to do what it really takes, it's within your reach. And it'll be worth every minute you spend alone at night, thinking about what it is you want to design or build. It'll be worth it, I promise. There's nothing that would keep Apple out of the Android market as a secondary phone market. If my son wants to be a pimp when he grows up, that's fine with me. I hope he's a good one and enjoys it and doesn't get caught. I'll support him in this. But if he wants to be a network administrator, he's out of the house and not part of my family. I want to get back to education. When I was in college, I paid attention to child psychology portions of our psychology classes. I watch other people work with babies. And I saw the baby as developing like a computer, and it intrigued me in my life. I wanted to do that. All of a sudden, we've lost a lot of control, he said. We can't turn off our internet, we can't turn off our smartphones, we can't turn off our computers. You used to ask a smart person a question. Now, who do you ask? It starts with G-O, and it's not God. I am the person I want to be. I got to teach and had some of the greatest times in my life learning that I had some teaching skills and doing some incredible things, teaching 200 hours of computers a year to 5th graders, making them experts at certain things. I had no money. I had no savings account. So I would bring down my color TV set, a Sears TV with a cable snaked into it, they had no video in back in those days, and hooked it up to the circuit of very few chips and then a little keyboard you could type on. And I was trying to impress people with how did he do it with fewer chips than anyone could ever imagine. When you're providing a service to somebody, you're the guy they always call when something's wrong. My dream was actually just to have a computer someday. If I'd imagined that it meant starting a company to sell them, I probably would have avoided the whole thing. When we first started with Apple computers, it was my dream that everyone would learn to program, and that was how they'd use their computer. I started passing out the schematics and the code listings for the computer, telling everyone here it is. It's small, it's simple, it's inexpensive, build your own. No idea to start a company. Steve Jobs came by later and say, you know, people are interested. Why don't we start a company? What Steve Jobs and I did, and at the same time Bill Gates and Paul Allen did, we had no savings accounts, no friends that could loan us money. But we had ideas, and I wanted all my life to be a part of a revolution. To give of yourself is much more important than giving a gift you can buy. Pretty much I want to be Steve Wozniak, who I decided I was at a young age and not change. I want to go back to school and get my college degree like I would have without Apple. I want to teach young kids like I would have without Apple. And part of it is I'm accessible. I'm open. And so many people email me and get me. And as much as I can, I try to answer people, listen to them, be polite and say yes. He, Steve Jobs, had come from the surplus electronics parts world. So he came from that world, and he said, let's sell PC boards for $40. We'll build them for $20 and sell them for $40. Steve Jobs doesn't use a Mac, and won't, because it's too crappy in his opinion. Our first computers were born not out of greed or ego, but in the revolutionary spirit of helping common people rise above the most powerful institutions. Imagination is something you do alone. It's funny how when you're up so late at night for so long your mind can get into these creative places, the kind of creative places that come to you when you're halfway between asleep and awake. You have to seek the simplest implementation of a problem solution in order to know when you've reached your limit in that regard. Then it's easy to make trade-offs, to back off a little, for performance reasons. You can simplify and simplify and simplify, yet still find other incredible ways to simplify further. I just was non-political and didn't see myself as a person who could push people around, make their decision, you know, and tell them how lousy their work was. Neither one of us could be sure we'd get our money back on this investment, but we just wanted to have company of our own for once because we were best friends. Somebody who's designing something for himself has at least got a market of one that he's very close to. Bill Gates did predict that computers for people made sense because he wrote a BASIC. I have never left the company. I keep a tiny residual salary to this day because that's where my loyalty should be forever. I want to be an employee on the company database. I won't engineer, I'd rather be basically retired, due to my family. Talking about his relationship with Apple Inc. I really worry about everything going to the cloud. If I designed a computer with 200 chips, I tried to design it with 150. And then I would try to design it with 100. I just tried to find every trick I could in life to design things real tiny.